another episode of the Weaver Way podcast. I'm joined with my co-host Sebastian Villarreal and Brett Big Dog Martin, coming off an impressive knockout victory at Legends of Combat against his opponent Luis Cortez. First round knockout, right, Brett?
Big start of the second round.
Start of the second round. So I actually had to watch your fight back on video because I was in the back coaching Cody, but Sebastian got to see it for himself. All I could hear is how brutal it was.
Yeah, no, it went well.
But I gotta say, because I didn't know too much about you or your opponent when you guys came out, and we finally had the big dogs come out because the fight card was good, but there wasn't that many knockouts, and I was praying for a heavyweight fight, and the big dogs finally come out, and I see the Mexican Hulk, and I'm Mexican, so originally I'm like, all right, I want this Mexican to win, and then you come out too, and I'm like, oh, it's some big guys about to bang, and I didn't know you were gonna be so good with your movement. I saw the takedowns, I saw the grappling. You almost had the Kimura, and then the hands just shut the show down and put that guy out. Let's talk about your fighting background. What got you into fighting?
I grew up wrestling, and when I was in college, Matt Frendo, who's the promoter for Legions of Combat, worked for a smaller promotion kind of near my hometown, and a bunch of my buddies always fought. So once I got done wrestling, one of my buddies and me were training, and a dude that we went to high school with, was talking crap online, so I ended up taking a fight, and then, it just kind of rolled off from there. I never really ever planned on fighting. I just kind of fell into it.
Hell yeah.
You're pretty good at it, man, with the 11-1 record.
Hell yeah.
What do you think is next for Big Dog Brett Martin?
Just continuing to, lose a little bit of weight, slowly get back down near where I was when I was, like at the prime of my pro career. Now that my kids are getting a little older and everything's kind of rolling out really well. My wife's pretty laid back with the whole fighting thing. She doesn't enjoy it, but she sees that I'm kind of made for it. I enjoy it. All the people around me support me, so we're just trying to make a run if we can make a run. We're not young, but still pretty young for a heavyweight. So just like I said, just trying to get the weight down slowly instead of I used to cut a lot of weight before fights, kind of do it like a wrestler, and I don't want to do that being older. I want to get healthy, make sure everything's taken care of, and then just take my time because I'm in no hurry. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Absolutely, man. You had a little bit of a break. Talk to me. What was that all about? Was it because of COVID, or was it just because you needed to get some things in order?
When I first started fighting, I promised myself, basically, I want to say just my wife, but I always promised myself that when I was having kids that, no matter what situation I was in life, I was going to be around, even if ended up being an NFL football player. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be gone while my wife was pregnant and going to the doctor's appointments and doing all that stuff alone. I'm not really with that. I see it as a parent duo thing. You got to be a good supporter to your wife. Or even just your baby mama. I see it as, even if they're not together, it's still a solid thing to be there for them, because if your wife or your baby mama's not doing well, that could obviously hurt how the kid's going to turn out, or what the future of the kid is. So I've always just been really big on being around there for my family. So once I hit 25 and stuff with the UFC was kind of playing the game, and then you got to try to play kiss butt in this sport, and they want you to work for their managers and play with the money how they want to play with it. And I'm just not for all that. I'm pretty smart. I know how to use my money. I run a business now, even though I'm a little bit older. So, it's just how my life was planned out. Once I turned 25 or was getting a little older, I knew I wanted to start having kids. I don't want to be a 40-year-old dad. So, I just, kind of took some steps back and started building my family. And like I said, all that's went really well so far. So now I can kind of, slide the fighting back into my schedule a little bit more.
I'm very happy for you, bro. Honestly, with the whole family thing, I see how you've got a lot of support. And I know that doesn't come by accident. So there must be something about you that draws people. I've always been friends with you because we fought for that same promotion back in the day. And it was nice seeing you. You were the heavyweight amateur champ. I was the flyweight champ back then. And now look at you, bro. You're doing great things. I'm very happy to see that for you. And I know it's not by accident. Talk to me. Why is it that so many people rally around you and you got such a big fan base out there?
I think a lot of it just comes from me being from a small town that had a big wrestling pedigree. We were taught to keep your mouth shut and just do the work. You know what I mean? Because we're from a small town, we didn't really have the flashy clothes and the flashy shoes and all that stuff. You know, we just kind of went out and wrestled. So, and our coaches weren't with us like showboating and stuff. And I think me being an African American, you know, I'm half and half, played a big part in that also. You know, my dad didn't really want us showing our butt and acting out. He wanted us to kind of fit in and do the work and talk through our, like, you know, our you know, how we acted and our skill sets. So I think that played a big part of it, just that team atmosphere all the time, and knowing what it's like to be there for a person and competing with a big group of guys, you know what I mean? And then obviously I wrestled in college, so I just have that mindset of, like, I know what you have to do to grow. I know what it takes to, you know, win and just be great if you do the things right. So I think that was, you know, if it wasn't for wrestling, I obviously wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Hell yeah. Speaking of the fight fans, because I honestly, you were the biggest crowd favorite. Out of all the fights, everyone was cheering for you the loudest. So you have the fans, and I honestly think you have the skills. You ever think maybe a spot in the UFC is where you would want to go if you ever got that call?
Yeah, no, you know, I mean, like I said, I'm not huge on, you know, labels and all that stuff. Because, like I say, when you get to fight for the UFC, they kind of act like they own you. You know what I mean? So it's just hard for me. I want to negotiate a little bit more than the average person. You know, $12,000 for a beginning contract is kind of whack money. You know what I mean? Like, definitely in today's age, if we're being honest with each other, you want to take care, like bringing your family out, bringing your coaches out, and actually, like, you know, making it an experience. You know, you're going to need a lot more money than that for, you know, an average person to make a thing happen. And for me, dude, I work a good job. I got a pension, I got health insurance, you know, and I run a small business now for the last 3 or 4 years on the side, doing things, you know, helping my buddies eat, and, you know, we come together, we make money, and we're, you know, it's a good thing. So I live a really good life. So I don't like to, you know, put a bunch of marbles in one basket, like, oh, I'd be so sad if I didn't make it to the UFC. But, you know, obviously that's the goal. I'm good friends with Jamal Hill. You know, he just won the UFC belt a year ago or so. You know, there's nothing cooler than seeing that. You know, it's just like being a high school state champion. You know, that's always the end goal when you're doing a sport and you're a competitor. So obviously the UFC would be the highlight of it all. But, you know, like I said, it's all got to work out. I got to get my weight right and get feeling right. But I like the PFL route to the UFC. You know, you see these PFL people going in, making money, and then they slide into the UFC. You know, I kind of like that route also. And I've already dealt with the PFL a little bit, so I think they kind of already know who I am. So I think that route could definitely benefit me. And then obviously with my record, and, you know, I've been in a lot of title fights. I've fought a lot of big, like, scarier heavyweights, I guess people would say, like, you know, like poster boys. You know, so I've kind of been in there with basically anybody, I guess is the way to put it. You know, some guys I fought have been ranked as high as like top 10 in the world after fighting me. So, you know what I mean? It's just kind of crazy. But at the same time, I don't let that shit bug me, you know, because for me, like I say, my ending goal, dude, is just the white picket fence, and for my family and definitely my kids to say that I did everything as a father that I needed to do.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, man. Regardless of where you fight, I know that you're going to have people there for you, always backing you up. You have me as well. But you manage your own career right now?
Yeah. I worked with Liam for a long time. He just kind of came into it, and he didn't have a bunch of guys. So I told him, you know, like, hey, like, I can help you build your brand if you help me in the areas that I need help. So we did that for a long time. And then when I was kind of doing the family thing, he stepped away. So right now it's just been me doing it. And it'll probably stay that way. Like I said, I don't know. It's hard for me to say that I need somebody to tell me when I can fight or what I should do, you know, because, like, you know, when you're fighting with the UFC with a different manager, he's going to call me and tell me, oh, this is the best fight, even though it's that weekend and I can't make that weekend work, and they want me to take this much work off and stuff. You know, I'm going through getting licenses at my job. So it's, you know, I'm kind of a younger guy. So these licenses are pretty important once I get older and want to retire, when fighting isn't even an option. You know what I mean? So for me right now, it's a lot of, like, just trying to make the right decisions and making sure that I'm just, you know, crossing my T's and dotting my I's, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I really agree with you when it comes to having a manager. As far as MMA, I don't really know if we need manager. Like, really, the negotiation is pretty simple. Where's the fight? when is it, and how much are you going to pay me? And I feel like you own a business, I own a business. Those are pretty simple things. If I don't like the price, like, nobody's gonna put a gun to your head and force you to do it. So honestly, man, it is good on you that you're gonna take that route. If a lot of people would act like it's like hit the lottery, you make it to UFC, but it's really not that.
No, it's just like running a business. You know, there's a lot of work that comes into this, and like you said, I have a big fan base. I'm like I said, super blessed from my wrestling pedigree. You know, I was a college All-American, so I think that helps also. It brings a lot of like my old friends, and when I fight in Muskegon, it's probably the closest place I can fight that's to my hometown. You know, so it gives me a lot of pull there also. But yeah, it's just crazy to think about. You know what I mean? How far it's came, and definitely like, you know, my last couple fights, there's been a lot of support.
So a lot of boxers take that route of no manager, and I think it's pretty wise, especially if you're looking to maximize how much money you make, if you don't need someone to negotiate for you. However, if you're one of those fighters who can't speak for yourself, it might be a different route. Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, I feel like it's definitely a lot easier for a fighter. Like, definitely you talk well for yourself, and you know, you're the one that was in the fights, and you're the one that put the work in. So I feel like it's way easier to you know, sell me being me. You know, just like when I go bid work, it's a lot easier for me to bid the job than it would be for one of my guys that's pretty new on the job site, because he's not going to be able to hit the selling points, or, you know, kind of try to sell the homeowner on something. So like, I try to treat it pretty similar, to be honest with you.
So I just want to go back to your fight real quick that you just had. You're known for wrestling. It's pretty obvious, and you've got good submissions. You know, your Kimura is a solid move. I've seen you hit it on someone like Josh Parisian, who I have a lot of respect for. He's a great fighter, fought in the UFC. You landed that move before. But this fight, talk to me. What have you been doing different that led to this knockout?
I think I've always had decent hands, you know what I mean? Definitely, if you go back to like my amateur career when I was fighting super heavyweight again, like I am now, I had a couple knockouts, you know, and one kind of similar to the one I just had. So I think a lot of it is definitely like the extra weight I carry. I'm very good at maneuvering my weight for a big fella. You know what I mean? Most guys don't know how to use their weight effectively. When I get a little bit bigger, I do move, you know, pretty well. But obviously right now, like, I don't like being this big, you know, but, you know, it's part of the process when you're getting back into it. I got offered to compete. I'm a competitor. So, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me. I just wanted to get in there and fight. So like I say, the weight will slowly come off, just like it did when I was an amateur. I think I took my first amateur fight at like 335, 340. So similar, not, you know, I'm a little heavier now, but I'm also a grown ass man now. So I'm a lot stronger than I was when I was 20 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the heavyweight division, 31 is pretty young. We're seeing guys win championships in their 40s at heavyweight. So
yeah, and that's why
sky's the limit for you, bro.
Yeah, and that's why. That's why I was that's never why I was in a hurry. You know, when I was first fighting, I knew that, you know, I you know, if you rush things, you get banged up, and you're trying to fight while you're all hurt and stuff. You know, as a heavyweight, it's nice to be healthy and just take my time. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to kiss anybody's butt to say I was a UFC fighter. You know, I'll do the work, and if they think I'm worth it, then I'm worth it. But other than that, I'll be the hometown hero in Muskegon until I'm 40, 45 if I have to be.
There ain't nothing wrong with that. Trust me, I believe in it.
What kind of training were you doing? Like, what styles were you sparring for this fight, or who were you training with? What kind of styles were you training with?
Okay, so I've always kind of done things similar. About, I guess, right around COVID, I was training a little bit more with Black Lion, which is Jamal Hill's gym there. But I've always ran with Triumph Muay Thai. They were kind of who started when I first went pro. They were the first gym I went to. They helped me like learn a lot of striking. And my coach Nick Bailing there, who was in my corner, he's the tall guy with the longer hair. He's cornered me in like 80% of my fights as a pro. He's traveled all over with me, you know what I mean? So, and he's very knowledgeable, very quiet. You know, he's not gonna, you know, be the loud guy in the room or nothing, or try to tell somebody how great he is, you know. But he's very good at wrapping hands. He's taken guys across the country in Muay Thai and won multiple, you know, belts with different people. And you know, they're great. They treat me as good as Jamal's gym does. So I do Monday, Wednesday, which is no-gi at Jamal's gym. because of his coaches. And obviously I like gi, but no gi when I'm in camp is obviously the route, just because we don't wear gis when we're fighting. And then Tuesday, Thursday, I do striking at Muay Thai. Friday, I do rolling and sparring at Black Lion. Saturday morning, I roll at Black Lion, and then I leave there at like 10:30 and go spar at Triumph until like noon, 12:30 is usually what my weeks look like when I'm like heavy camp. This camp it was a little rougher because I wasn't sure if I was fighting, and then when I finally got a fight, I still had a few jobs that I was finishing up, so I kind of got a late jump. But sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. You know what I mean? You just got to put the time in that you can and stay confident, keep your mental right. And like I said, man, I'm a competitor. When I was younger, nobody ever thought I was going to be good, so I just whenever the lights come on, I just compete, and it's done me well this far.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to underestimate you, especially people that don't know you. Like I hear that talk, and I'm sure you hear it. How does that feel you?
It's I think it's funny because it's just been that way my whole life. You know what I mean? Growing up with the wrestlers I grew up, everybody in my room growing up was shredded, jacked, multiple time state champs. So I know what my caliber is, because I've lived it my entire life. And I'm blessed to be sparring with Jamal and been in his camps now for a few years on and off, and gotten to train with some of the high level guys that he's brought around from the UFC. So when you're in these gyms, you don't need a video or a proof somehow. You put it in your head and you take your licks where you take them, and you take licks from amateurs, let alone professionals, in this sport. So, I just go day by day. And like I said, I've trained with some of the best people in the world. So, just blessed that, I know where I sit. I might look a little different, but, I'm a competitor. Like I say, this ain't bodybuilding, it's fighting. So we're going to bite down on our mouthpiece, and we'll see who's standing at the end, I guess.
I have one last question for you. There was a movie I'm sure you watched recently, The Smashing Machine. Did you check it out? I loved it, man. So that was heavyweight division was highlighted in this movie. I just wanted to know, like, from your opinion, what's a dream fight for you that if you ever could fight anyone in the history of MMA, who's your dream heavyweight matchup?
That's good. I'd say growing up, I was a huge fan of like Mark Hunt, and then like the Frank Mears, and then like the Brock Lesnar era. So I'd say any one of those guys. But if I ever had to fight somebody that, I guess he wasn't a heavyweight, but he was a nice guy, very humble. When I met him and got to talk to him, it would be Rumble, dude. That was one of the cooler guys I've met. He was such a humble dude, and to put it on the line against a scary dude like that would always be dope.
Yeah, rest in peace, Rumble.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. All right, man, thanks for being on here, man. I really appreciate that, and I hope you have a great life and with your family and everything. We'll have you on again in the future, but I appreciate your time, brother.
Thanks for having me, dude. And like I said, I'm proud of you. Happy for everything that you're doing with the Weavers, dude. You're killing it. It's nice to see. It was nice to see you, like you say, in the locker room. It felt like the old days again. It was definitely cool.
Yeah.
Good times, bro. Love you, bro. We'll talk soon.
Have a great night.